What's up, everyone? Mitchell Saltzman here alongside creative director Cezar Virtosu and executive producer and head of studio at Hexworks, Saul Gascon, and we are here to talk all about Lords of the Fallen. And specifically, we're going to focus on the innovations that it brings to the table. But before we even get into what Lords of the Fallen specifically does to innovate on traditional Souls-like combat, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts and pick your brains a little bit on why you think this style of very deliberate, more methodical, and very often stamina-based combat really resonates with fans of this genre.
I think firstly, it's a matter of pacing and how the world sort of treats you. We find that these games are best absorbed and you're doing your detective works. The encounters are small nuggets of challenges that you need to untangle. Nothing kind of pushes you into and locks you in an encounter. So effectively, it's a game about observation, premeditation. It's similar to Dungeons and Dragons in a way. When you're studying the map of the layout, you look at the encounters, you go in, you go out, and it's very challenging, very difficult, and the stakes are always high. Mm-hmm. In these games, the stakes are high, and of course, scarce access to healing makes everything much more meaningful.
Right. Much more like punishing and like more rewarding in return.
Exactly.
With all that as well. So now focusing specifically on Lords of the Fallen, did you have any fundamental goals for the combat design with regards to what you wanted the combat to feel like?
Actually, we had like several objectives that we wanted to kind of fill out, right? So the first one is that, as Cezar was explaining, like we want players to observe, to kind of analyze before they enter into combat, right? So there's kind of a tactical layer there. And so we started from the most basic, right? So we started from like that base of like, okay, we want each enemy to be an archetype that players can recognize, so then they can recognize the situation, know how to act on there. And then from there, we started building up the different abilities and capabilities of the player in terms of melee, in terms of range, magic, to kind of be able to manage those situations, right?
Mm-hmm. So Saul touched a very important topic and has been an uphill battle for us as well. Each enemy has its strengths and weaknesses. They're good at one thing, they're weak at another. Having a very complex machine AI that is good at everything, defeating it becomes a war of attrition. Mm-hmm. So, and you do not recognize exactly what you're doing well. Because and we say this a lot, the difference between motivation and frustration is knowing what you've done wrong.
Right.
If something has no weaknesses or perceivable weaknesses, you don't understand if you're doing well or wrong. So we're trying to focus on certain abilities, give that a clear purpose and clear weaknesses, so that you help you in the mastering of the game.
Mm. So it feels like with every new addition to the Souls-like genre, we see new innovations to the combat, whether it's the regain system of Bloodborne or the posture meter of Sekiro, the key pulse of Neo. How does Lords of the Fallen further innovate on that Souls-like combat?
You want to take this one?
Yeah, I think like it all boils down to Umbral, right? Mm-hmm. So Umbral for us is an innovation in all levels. Like it permeates everything in our game, from narrative to combat to like everything, right? So progression systems, enemies, everything. So then that's one thing that was very important for us, right? That we needed this very solid base of an action RPG or tactical action RPG. And on top of this is like, okay, how will Umbral interact with every and each of our subsystems, right? So the player has a lamp, the Umbral lamp, and with it he can access a set of abilities that nobody else can in that universe, right? And that gives him an edge that he can use in combat or in exploration or, interacting with different NPCs.
Yeah. More so, we've looked into ergonomics because we wanted to modernize the experience and make it feel fresh and fluid. We wanted the fantasy of the man in armor that kind of weaves and bobs, so it's not just turns on a dime, but at the same time we want the character as responsive as possible, so we had to kind of find a good balance between feeling like a realistic guy with all our medieval stances and all that, everything else. But also a lot of ergonomics in terms of movement. So in that regard, we have kind of trimmed some of the recovery animations. You can get out of the certain recovery animations just a smidge faster. You can swing the sword, and when you're selecting, you can switch stances in between attacks seamlessly. Like from here, here. Or of course, and this creates a lot of freedom for PvP where you change.
So you touched upon something that I noticed when I got to play this yesterday, which was the seamless stance switching. I was doing dual daggers, and then I would do a dual dagger combo, and then I would switch, and then the next hit would be like two-handed one dagger and a little stab. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of led you to adding that feature, and maybe give an example of how someone might use that technique to their advantage in combat?
Well, PvP aside, where you're not supposed to telegraph your intentions and always keep the other guy guessing, for single player, for the actual play by play, we noticed that the character always needs to move. There shouldn't be a stop where you have to change gear, equipment, and weapons. As long as you have stamina and you have good management of it, the ideal fantasy is that you're switching seamlessly between targets and attacking, because currently you can do that. It's very hard to do so in case but you can parry this guy here, you can do this one here, return to backstab the other guy. As long as you have stamina to flow, you will be able to be this dervish of death. The second thing that kind of helps into this is that all the directional attacks that some of the genre has, like forward attack, back attack, we have done away with that, because we notice a lot of player pressing toward the enemy, and we want to result in weird animation. So we added the kicks and the bashes to combining two buttons, and what we call the multi-attack, the multi-hit with another combination of buttons, and that creates this very amazing looking hits. And because we added a posture that is visible, whenever you're waiting, slamming your weapon against an opponent, you see that diminishing, and you see you have like a little stamina left. Okay, I will throw caution off the window. I'm gonna use a multi-hit attack that will put me vulnerable, but it's gonna deplete the posture of that enemy. And it's all a resource management game.
Right.
It's important to remark that the timings are everything in this type of game, in the genre, right? So it's all about identifying the opportunities, the windows of opportunity, right? So you asked for an example. So you're fighting this big dude, right? And you're going with your two swords and like all in, and then the guy is attacking you, right? So then you dash out of it, switch to two-handed, and then you do a heavy charge attack to get his posture down, right? So this way, like, it's very easy for you to identify, okay, now I have a bigger window of opportunities, great, let's switch to two-handed and let's land a heavy attack, and that will destroy the posture of that guy, right? And then, but then that guy reacts, right? Because our enemies are not like waiting for you to, you know, right? So then when he does that, you can very quickly switch back to your other stance, and then use parries or your shield, whatever you have equipped, right?
So for the fluidity as well, sorry to harp on this.
Oh, it's okay.
I love it. Saul mentioned something very awesome, which is our heavy attacks. And this is something that we realized early on, that heavy attacks are something that kind of holds you into place. You have to commit, and then you miss and you get frustrated. Therefore, you're not going to use it. So this was something like, okay, how can we address this? And currently, as the game works, our heavy attacks are just as fast as light attacks. Like, there's no difference. They still concatenate. The difference is that you can hold them.
Yep.
You can hold them as much as you want. So it's really up to you to learn the delivery speed so that you can see how much real estate I have with charging this attack. But if you just press it once, it just goes very quickly.
So we call them now, let's say, chargeable
Chargeable light
right?
attacks.
Yeah. So this came all from player feedback. The way that we work at Hexworks is that we have our team, very talented team, and with our very talented team of directors as well. And, we do the best that we think is the best for the game, right? But you always want a reality check, right? So on every milestone, we always check with external people, like it can be players, it can be press, it can be, like different types of companies, right? And then they give us the reality check, like, hey, so what happened actually with the heavy attacks, it was like, hey, they are too slow. Like, what? What do you mean? Exactly. They're supposed to be slow. You commit,
the
right?
damage?
Like, yeah. And they're like, oh, yeah, but they're too slow. So, okay, so then we refactor it to be a charged light attack, right? So then you just decide how much you want to commit as a player. So what is very cool right now is that if you just tap it, you get a bam, like quick. But if you keep press, as soon as you release, you deliver, right?
Go in.
So you can decide how much you want to commit to that attack, right?
Yeah.
And this all adds to this fluidity.
Fluidity, faster, and faster still. The healings, super quick. Because the game, as you notice, it's relentless.
Yeah.
But these small things, you need to sort of pick up on them as you play.
So I wanted to talk to you guys about weapons and weapon types. How many different types of weapons are there going to be in Lords of the Fallen? And how does that weapon of choice affect your approach to combat?
So in terms of families, we have 12 families of weapons, which that means like a full set of different types of attacks, strength, speeds, reaches, etc. And then within each of those, we have like dozens and dozens of variety of weapons. Some of them is just affecting like the scalings, like the pure RPG. Like, okay, this one scales with strength, this one scales with vitality, whatever, right? With chaos, with radiance. So those are the basics. But then every weapon, what it does is that it has a unique set of animation. So then basically when you choose a weapon, you're choosing also a playstyle, right? So if you are armed, for instance, with a long sword, you're gonna be doing like slower, heavier attacks, right? Meanwhile, if you use like a short sword or a knife, you're gonna be quicker, right? And a cool thing we actually are very proud of, and it's very fun to play, is that you can actually combine weapons. You can dual wield them in any combination you want. We don't give you any limitations, so you could equip like two crazy great hammers, right? Like go like boom, boom, or two great swords, or like you can combine anything, really.
Or a knife and a hammer.
Or a knife and a hammer.
Okay.
And then usually you will do that like to get the effects, special effects that some weapons have. If you combine like a crazy combo like that, like a big hammer and then a small knife, it's like, okay, the knife gives me plus whatever. When I kill an enemy, I get vitality back, whatever, right? So then you will combine those two to get those advantages. So for us, what was more important is to provide players with freedom, right? It's like, okay, you have this huge tool set of things to have fun with, like just experiment. And this is what we want players to do, like experiment with all the systems, all the weapons, all the move sets and types of attacks that we provide.
So moving on from weapons to magic, and we don't want to go into too much detail because we have another video coming out later on all about magic. But can you go into a little bit about what role magic plays in combat in Lords of the Fallen?
Oh, it's tremendous. So because the game is very heavy on the theology of the cosmos and the entities that grant one type of magic to those that do the bidding and respect their rituals. So we're super heavy in lore and stuff like that. Let's say every magic type, it has a patron saint, let's say, and they want specific ways for it to worship, and they use certain catalysts. Orios through the blood becomes light, searing light. The Rogar use hands of the fallen to conjure. So magic sits at the heart of the game, literally. And when we designed magic, because for us the melee is absolute king, and melee it's everything, weaving in and out of combat. We have nukes, meteor showers, all that spicy thing.
We have some crazy stuff. Right?
But a lot of the magic focuses on close to medium range, to buffs, to auras, to anything you're consecrating the ground or creating bouncing fireballs, which are kind of useless in a large area, but in a small area, it's just going to wreck everything there. So we want the fantasy of the players, taking the magic from the creatures that they see. If a bot just ruins your weekend with this one particular ability, we wanted to play it to seize that ability for himself.
Yeah, actually, you tapped on something important. Like anything you see in the game world, you can use it. Like any gear from any enemy, any magic they use, anything, like any weapon. This is something that was very important for us because it's aspirational. You see that guy like, hey, how did that I don't know, fire witch drop this fireball, right? Like what's going on, right?
You can cosplay her. We added the tail to the armor, so you look like
her stuff. But like let's say that our main inspiration, we went into how to implement magic or integrate magic in combat was a bit like, we could say like the good old Star Wars movies, you know, like you see the guy like taking the lightsaber and then force push somebody and then suddenly, oh, you know, like you're like, oh, this is so cool. And or Darth Vader with electricity here, right? So we were a bit, we wanted that for the players, right? We wanted them to be able to get the swords, as we explained before, like switch instances, like different play styles, and then suddenly go like, bam, and you just drop a fireball, then you get attack, bam, you use a protection spell, right? So your damage is reduced, and then you can counteract with a scream that pushes enemies forward, right? So we wanted that dynamism. This is why, as Cezar explained before, like you press L2, and then it's a quick, like you have everything remapped, so you can be like this and hup. So it requires a bit of muscle memory, right? Yeah. So I always do, for what I use the most between combat, I put it R1 or 2, right? Because I'm not that, you know, like that burst with this finger, but yeah, it's super cool to see the combos.
But this started very humble. We were, and I think we mentioned this before, but maybe not in this interview. One of the first thing that we've done when we start the game is to address feedback for the previous game. And the previous games, folks felt the combat was too rigid, or otherwise not as, you can't use it in more ways than one. There's just a few abilities and use them. And that is like, okay, magic, put it on top of we need to expand the magic. So that's how we got the ball.
You don't want a checkbox, like magic done. No. Magic, how do we properly integrate it? Like same with Umbral actually, or everything we integrated in the game, right? It's not just
a numbered game.
Exactly.
We cut magic that was redundant, that felt like it was overshadowing certain things. Like this school of magic has a different, no, this is too aggressive for this sort of things. We don't want to overlap and step on any tail. Yeah. So it was a bit of a Pandora's box that we had to kind of keep. Easy. Melee is still king. We're not transforming into fire avatars.
All right, well, that is all I have. Thank you all so much for telling us all about Lords of the Fallen. And we've got plenty more Lords of the Fallen content coming up all throughout the month. So for everything else, keep it here on IGN. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.